We've got another episode of Tailwind. Today we're joined by Todd Twete. Hey, Todd, we're talking about the old metrics versus the new metrics. Tell me more about that.
You bet. So, more years ago than I'd like to admit, when I was an individual contributor, there was this notion that I had to knock on somebody's door at least three times to get their attention, to get a meeting for them to understand my value proposition kind of thing. Well, that's an old metric. And the one that seems to be most accepted today is eight, eight touches. And touches is kind of Todd speak, Todd nomenclature. Just think of a touch in terms of any kind of outreach, any kind of interaction.
Mhm.
And that can come in a myriad of forms. Of course, it's a call or an email, but it could be a prospect looking at a LinkedIn post. It certainly could be a prospect downloading a white paper. It could be a trade show booth conversation or somebody walking by your trade show booth. It certainly could be a digital ad, a print ad. Any of those things constitute a touch, or my definition of a touch. So the new metric, the current metric, if you will, is I've got to knock on Austin's door in some way, shape, or form eight different times to get a first meeting with Austin. That's not for Austin to become a customer, sign a purchase order or something like that. That's just to get a first meeting, create some kind of top of mind awareness, that kind of thing. And again, this old metric versus new metric conversation we had, I just think that eight touch metric really has consequences and consideration in terms of prospecting activity and top of funnel activity. If you start doing the math and figure out how many touches have to occur to move somebody from top of funnel all the way through the sales process, sales cycle, and come out at the bottom of the funnel, candidly, sometimes the numbers can be a little bit daunting.
Yeah. Now, would you say, I should look at eight for just everyone, or should I say, hey, if I have a real strategic account I'm going after, maybe I do 20, and then if I have maybe some smaller accounts that I'm testing an idea, maybe I do six just to keep the 20 available. How should I really think about that?
Yeah, well, great question. And I'll say it again, it's an average. And
Yeah.
there's definitely variables. Of course, my industry, my business, that kind of thing is
Mhm.
certainly can be a variable. Um, from some in the lead gen space, those that are providing those kind of services, those are providing those kind of data in a somewhat self-serving manner, they actually push that number up, Austin. They
Mm.
might talk in terms of 12 touches or more needed. But there is a really interesting statistic specific to individual contributors. The proverbial rainmakers, those that are very experienced and skilled, they can actually push that touch number down just because of their approach to the prospect, how well they communicate, how well they communicate the value proposition. And that's about five. So
Okay.
again, I would look at that eight as an average. There are certainly variables that could push it up or down. But if you were building a sales funnel process with top of funnel lead gen for the first time, I would plug in that eight. And then, of course, measure it, reevaluate it over time.
Would there be any advantage of, let's say I become highly skilled and I'm not there yet, but as I'm thinking about it, and I start noticing, hey, I'm noticing I'm actually getting your conversions around four or five, and that's great. Would you still recommend keep it at eight? It can't hurt. Maybe even put it at 10. And if you're getting through five, then perfect. That's not a big deal.
I hate giving this answer, but it depends.
Yeah.
So if Austin is a team of one and your entire sales process and your lead gen is just built for you, Austin, I would absolutely change it. If we're
Mhm.
truly talking about a team of five or 10, I think I'd be looking at the average overall for the team and adjusting the process based
Mhm.
on is the average across the team eight, six, nine, whatever the average is. It's really difficult to build a process like we're talking about. Let's use five for Austin, eight for Todd, 10 for Sam, six for Christy, that kind of thing. I mean, you really kind of have to take an average approach across the team, assuming you have one.
So if I'm the sole contributor, am I moving that sequence down to five because highly likely that step six, seven, and eight, because my average is down, those last three aren't really worth it. So I should just move on to the next person and fill my funnel more to get more outreach in because I have that more likelihood. and that's freeing me up. It's kind of like getting an early no, and their lack of answer is a by step five is basically it's a no.
Yeah.
I have to waste three more touches on that person.
I guess the way I look at that is for the same reasons you would want to improve your conversion rate from meeting one to say demo, trial, proposal.
Yeah.
Just like you'd want to improve your conversion rate from proposal to close. It's similar here in terms of number of touches. If I can drive down the number of touches, the lift, the resources, the expense I incur to create that first meeting can go down.
Hmm.
If I'm doing direct mail, for example, this is just one example, there's absolutely a cost associated with that. Well, if I need to send out less direct mail to create those 5 touches versus 8, guess what? I just saved a bunch of money.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that makes
there's the practical consideration of just wanting to improve things to move revenue numbers. And obviously, there's the practical consideration of the level of effort and the resources needed to create those prospects in the first place.
yeah. And then you were saying like, okay, if I have a team of 10, I want to
Yep.
have the average, I want to be the average for the number of sequences. What are some of the advantages of having everyone on that same average 8 touch versus customizing it to each of
Well, it somewhat sets a bar.
them?
And maybe you can even be a little bit more aggressive as an incentive and as a coaching and training tool that maybe the average is being hypothetical here again, but maybe the average is 8. Well, we set up the process based on 7 because that's what we're aspiring to. We want
Mhm.
to do a better job on those discovery meetings. We want to do a better job on the outreach. We want to do a better job communicating the value proposition. So we're going to set the bar at 7 and see if we can't lift up performance to get there. I mean, obviously, in the real world, that's happening. I threw out the 5 and 8 a little while ago. The
Mhm.
proverbial rainmakers, the really successful, really skilled salespeople tend to get that first meeting after 5 touches. The average is 8. So that tells you there's a skill set difference, an approach difference, a
Yeah.
mindset difference. And so because of that, I feel like we could almost set the bar and use it as a coaching tool, an aspirational tool that, okay, let's drive down the number of touches needed to get to that first meeting.
Yeah, I like the idea of just simplifying the analysis, right? If you have your average, then you just go, okay, everyone above the average touch, that's where I'm going to focus on, creating their messaging and looking at, and everyone who's at 5, what's their messaging? How are they different? And
Yep.
then being able to just easily look at it instead of having to run it through some advanced statistical models,
Yes, yes,
have
yeah.
like AI break it down and look for stuff. It's like, it's simple. There's 8. That's our average. Who's above, get them down. Who's below, learn from them and pass it on to everyone else. It
Agreed.
feels
Agreed.
incredibly easy.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
So you were also talking about when you're defining touches, multiple different types of channels and different ways of doing it. What's the value in having more than just picking up the phone or just sending cold emails? Like, why are we
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at doing that?
Great question. And it's very common for many SMBs across a variety of industries to have 1 or 2 channels. Um, Best practices tells us that if we have 3 or more channels, our conversion rate, suspects to prospects, prospects to demos, demos to closes, that kind of thing, it goes up by 30%.
Jeez, yeah.
So maybe I'm just using email today. If I add in social media, LinkedIn, if I add in direct mail, if I add in Google Ads, something like that, all those are different channels. If I get to the point of 3 or more, my conversion rate goes up by 30 some percent.
Yeah.
It's pretty compelling.
Yeah. And so what do you think is the reason that the diversification is driving that?
Um, I mean, we are an information overloaded society,
Yeah,
right?
at least. Yeah.
And that's part of it. The other part is depending upon your prospect, we all consume information differently.
Mhm.
Some people it's constantly the phone, others it's email. I know folks that when they're doing research, they're looking for new products, looking for partners. It's all about a trade show visit, an annual trade show visit kind
Mhm.
of thing. So at the point of somebody being top of funnel, you don't know a lot about this organization at that point in time. Assumedly, they're top of funnel and in the category of what I refer to as being a suspect. You might have some ideal client profile information like industry type, revenue, number of employees, that kind of thing. There's this old notion of a marketing qualified lead that was often done on some rudimentary scoring, and that often indicated, well, they've been on the website, they downloaded a case study or white paper, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So we're looking at them as a suspect, somebody that might do business with us, but we haven't got that first meeting yet and haven't done our discovery. So those suspects, again, we don't know a lot about them, and they all might consume information differently. They might be in a different stage of the buyer's journey. They might not be in a buyer's journey at all. So I feel for all those reasons, that's why the multi-channel approach is so prudent and so necessary that um, Austin might be on LinkedIn every day, but never checks his email kind of thing.
Mhm.
So if I was only using the email channel to get to Austin, he doesn't look at his email. He's always on LinkedIn kind of thing. So it's different ways that media gets consumed, but it's also different ways to deliver content. I'll go back to that average of 8 touches. Those 8 touches aren't all Todd calling and asking for a meeting.
Yeah.
Those touches should be, I know it's a bit of a cliche, but thought leadership type, value add type. There's certainly going to be a mix of Todd calling and hoping he can get that meeting set up. But uh, earlier I talked about a white paper download. Could be some industry news you're sharing. So it's not only different types of information, hopefully creating value the whole time, but also just trying to reach people, you know, where they operate, where meet them in the middle kind of thing in terms of how they consume information.
So let's say I'm sitting here, I've been just sending cold emails. I sit down, I look up somebody on LinkedIn, I look up some information about them, I write a really nice email, but I'm finding that I'm not getting great conversion rates. What would be, my first steps to kind of breaking it out? Do I just hit every channel imaginable? Am I trying to be targeted? Is it research? Like, how would I break out of my funk of, here's the one thing I do is to send an email?
Yeah, another great question. I oftentimes ask clients, what does your prospecting strategy look like? And as I just mentioned a minute or two ago, oftentimes it's one or two channels that get used. I might dig into that a little bit, Austin, and ask, okay, which one seems to work the best? I mean, show me some metrics in terms of open rates, response rates. Maybe you've even got some, anecdotal feedback from clients or prospects about I really look at your newsletter or I really look at your LinkedIn post or something like that. So I'd evaluate whatever you're using. And I know you're just being hypothetical in your example. It sounded like that channel wasn't working. Um, but I would look at some that you're comfortable with and sync well with the kind of content you want to deliver. Again,
Mhm.
not every one of those touches is Todd calling and looking for a meeting. Hopefully I'm sharing something of value, something of interest to them. Again, back to that thought leadership type content. So I guess I would evaluate it from your comfort with the channels and hopefully you know a little bit about how your prospects consume information, their desired channel, and again, how well does it sync with the type of content you want to deliver. But in the back of my mind, I would be keeping the statistic in mind that I need 3 channels at least to
Mhm.
improve my conversion by 30 some percent.
Yeah. Are there any benchmarks or stats out there that kind of say, well, maybe you're not comfortable with this channel, but tough luck, it's so effective, you have to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I honestly, I think LinkedIn is a great example. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some school of thought that, oh, geez, LinkedIn is so overused, and I get in-mails and messages every day from people trying to be partners, people trying to sell me something.
Mhm.
But the connection rates on average, the response rates on average, it's pretty darn compelling that LinkedIn, even though it feels saturated, overused, is a very compelling channel. So that's maybe when you got to shut off the emotional thinking or the gut feeling thinking and
Yeah.
actually look at the metrics and say, maybe I don't like my personal experience with LinkedIn, but it's pretty compelling as a channel.
Yeah. And what about emails and phones? I mean, would you say those are a
Yeah,
little
so
less or
cold
LinkedIn gets,
email.
sorry,
I'm going to spew a few statistics for you. It's
please.
somewhere around a 1 or 2% response rate.
Yeah.
Um, It's pretty low, but it's a channel that gets used often a lot by a lot of different industries, a lot of different customers. It's one that I typically recommend. Cold calling, there's some variability behind this percentage in terms of how warm the prospect was before they got the call, or there's some outbound calling processes where an SDR gets the prospect on the phone and then hands it off to a BDR. So there's some variability, but in general, you're talking about a 2.5 to 3.5% success rate there. So, I make 100 cold calls, I'm getting 2 to 3 meetings based on 100 cold calls. Um, and back to your question about why multiple channels, why multiple touches, it also helps with top of mind awareness because every time I turn around, I'm getting a message from Austin in some way, shape, or form. I
Yeah.
see him on LinkedIn. I get a direct mail piece from him. Now I'm getting a voicemail piece from him. It definitely helps with the top of mind awareness.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, it sounds like the step would be to break out of a single channel by saying, okay, I need to start doing these multiple channels, start tracking it. It's totally fine to start with what you're most comfortable with, start seeing how that affects your business, and then maybe test ones that are beyond. Does that seem like a pretty
Yeah,
decent beyond your
yes,
comfort zone? Yeah,
it does. And it can be a little bit of a heavy lift.
yeah,
I admit that, and you're going to have to do some tweaking and measuring to get it dialed in. But you got to start someplace. And I love a lot of things about sales, and one of the things I really love about sales, it's a numbers game, Austin. It
yeah,
always has been, and in the foreseeable future, it will continue to be. And it's just a simple matter of fact that if the number coming out of the bottom of the funnel, the amount of revenue, the number of customers isn't what you want it to be, guess what? It's
yeah,
just a function of swimming upstream in that sales funnel and looking at the numbers upstream. If you're not throwing enough into the top of the funnel, surprise, surprise, the right number is not going to come out of the bottom of the funnel. So, again, I know it could be kind of a heavy lift, but if you're in a flat line revenue, top line revenue situation, or God forbid, a declining, you got to fix it, right?
yeah. Yeah, I guess there's two questions that emerge from that. The first one I think would be, all right, so I have my 8 touches. Let's say I've only been doing email. I know this is very drastic. Probably no one's just sitting there
Okay.
sending 8 emails to the same person, but I'm gonna say like let's sprinkle in some other stuff. And I'm doing like my LinkedIn as well. I'm making some phone calls. But like let's say my last one's always an email, and that's always like my crush best message email that I send, and the email is the one that's always getting responded to, but I've been adding these other ones in. How do I start understanding the impact of the LinkedIn and the call when I'm maybe not getting any LinkedIn messages or calls back, even though I've added them in and not feeling like it's, hey, I'm just throwing in more effort. Maybe I should just switch back to email.
Yeah, I think I'm tracking with you. So you're getting a response to email, but not via the two other channels. So
Right. Or
there's
maybe like let's say I'm getting LinkedIn and email, but none of my phone calls are ever getting like returned. How do I say, well, phone is or isn't working out for me?
yeah. Great question. And there's probably two possibilities for what you're experiencing. The fact that you're doing two other touches prior to the email is actually increasing the email response rate.
Hmm.
Again, all these touches are about creating some level of top of mind awareness. So,
Yeah.
LinkedIn post, LinkedIn message, a voicemail, and then your third step in the process is that email. Well, it could be a case of those two other touches are driving the response rate to the third touch via email. That's one possibility. The other possibility is back to your question about, well, why multiple channels? And part of my answer there was your prospects consume information differently.
Yeah.
It, I mean, it wouldn't be a complete corner case, but it would be a little bit odd to have very little response rate from either of those first two channels, Austin, and then a great response rate just to email. I would expect some response rate for the call, the LinkedIn, again, just because your prospects consume information differently. It would be odd, maybe
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
complete corner case, but to have no response rate from two channels and a great response rate from one.
So yeah, I mean, it not impossible, but highly, highly improbable that it would take
Probably.
place like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you would
yeah.
start seeing an increase in your success rates through that sequencing. And then you probably start seeing it happen sooner because you're hitting people in an earlier part that you wouldn't have otherwise,
Yep. Yeah.
realized.
And
Um, that's a great thing of it. Yeah.
indirectly, you're kind of making a point for me that if that situation did occur, instead of just kind of having this gut emotional reaction of LinkedIn and calling isn't working, I'd really want to see some metrics before
Yeah.
I would abandon those two channels and say, well, email's it. Look at the results I'm getting from email.
I mean, could you even set it up where it's like, well, that's fine. Have your take 300 people, reach out to 100 with just emails, 100 with email, LinkedIn, and phone, and then show me which one actually outperforms.
Absolutely,
You might
absolutely.
never get a call back, but the one with the phone calls getting more responses,
Yeah, yeah.
over
And
like a mountain.
and once again, this is an it depends kind of answer.
Of
I
course.
would just want to have a statistically significant sample size before
Yeah.
I pivoted from that strategy, pivoted from a channel instead of just having this, I tried it for a week or two and it didn't work, I'm abandoning it kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, I love always gauging stuff on statistically significant. Do you mind expanding a little bit just for people who
Yeah,
aren't
yeah,
sure
yeah.
exactly what that term means?
Well, when we started, I mentioned something about the sheer volume of top of funnel activity
Yeah.
oftentimes needed to work a suspect, then a prospect, all the way through the funnel to a customer. And I just thought I'd share some statistics here. So this is a hypothetical situation, but
Yeah.
Austin, let's say we've got a monthly goal of four new customers, four net new logos. So based on kind of some standard conversion rates, we would need 19 demos, trials, or proposals to ultimately get four new customers. I'm swimming upstream in the funnel right now when I'm throwing numbers at you. So to get those 19 demos or proposals, I've had to have 42 meetings.
Mhm.
So there's conversion rates going on there. I'm assuming a 22% close rate, which got me from the 19 to the 4. I'm assuming a 45% conversion rate from the 42 to the 19. And yes, I know those are going to vary based on business and industry, but they're somewhat industry standard. So that 8 number that we keep going back to over and over again, four customers means 336 touches.
Yeah. That's a lot.
Yes, it is. And if you move farther upstream now and look at individual channels, here's where the numbers get kind of daunting. I think I used that exact adjective a little while ago. Um, this is going to sound contradictory to my mantra about using three channels, but it just kind of hammers home the again the magnitude. If we used a single channel, say let's use cold email. To
Mhm.
get those four customers, we'd have to send out 4,200 emails.
Jeez.
To get those four customers
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, we'd have to do almost 400 requests on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. Cold calls, assuming again that variable 2.5% success rate, 1,800 dials. It's
Jeez.
a lot of picking up the phone.
It's a lot.
Direct mail, which has got about a 4 to 5% response rate. Now we're sending out almost 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
Now I know that sounds a little contradictory to, my mantra about three channels, but if you were just using one channel, that's what you're looking at in terms of volume. And I feel like that's often kind of a missed or misunderstood piece of the entire sales funnel. And oftentimes, what is focused on is the metrics lower in the funnel, Austin, like the number of first meetings, like the number of demos, trials, or proposals we're sending out. Those are really important, don't get me wrong. But if those numbers aren't right, back to sales is a numbers game. If we swim upstream in the sales funnel, if we're not getting the right number of meetings, we're not sending out the right number of proposals, if we swim farther upstream, it's probably a function of we're not doing enough touches
Yeah.
to people that are in the suspect stage.
One of the things, as you were saying, beyond just that being high volume and a very
Yeah,
daunting amount,
yeah, yes.
if you think about it too, like there's limitations on all those just from a technical perspective. Like LinkedIn will not let you send 400
Right,
pull
right,
requests a
right,
week, right?
right, right, right.
Best practices for sending emails is, you can't send 4,000 a day because you'll start getting flagged as spam. So you're limited on how many you can send per day. Like it
Which
becomes this
even
game.
further supports to three channels.
Exactly.
So I'm going
Right.
to distribute that load because of those technical limitations or
Yeah.
end user license restrictions, those kind of thing.
I mean, the technical limitations aren't the reason to switch. The reasons are because of everything you already lined out. But I just
Yeah,
like hearing those numbers, it's like, wow, even if I was stubborn, I wouldn't be able to build my funnel with one avenue just based on how
right,
technology's evolved
right,
and how many
right,
limitations
right.
they put into place. So for
Well, and I
anyone
was,
who's stubborn, I would just say tough luck. You're not even
yeah,
allowed to do it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And of course, I was being hypothetical with the four customer goal.
yeah,
But say that was a monthly goal, we've got to send out, based on a 1% success rate, just using a single channel, 4,200 emails. Well, how do I come up with 4,200 emails every month? Are they good emails? What kind of list do I have? Am I going back to the same 4,200 over and over again? So there's other practical considerations too.
yeah. So as we're swimming through this, I mean, in my experience and kind of what I've heard generally is that sales is kind of clumpy. Like you don't get, it's not like you get, two wins a month every single month. It's like you get five one month and one another month and zero the next month. And so as you're looking at these numbers and trying to understand them, how do I, as an individual, account for the more maybe like clumpy or cyclical or inconsistent nature of how the process actually works out?
Yeah, yeah, another great question. And some of that can be tied to seasonality of some businesses.
Yeah,
Whether it's summer season and I'm in the pool business, or I'm selling snow removal equipment and it's winter. There can be some seasonality associated. Can be other things in terms of I see a big spike in sales because of a new product launch, or we attend a national trade show every year and we get a lot of leads from that. So those are certainly some variables and drivers. In general, I would say we've got to be looking at top of funnel activity as an ongoing regular activity. It can't be, oh, we did it for a quarter, we're not doing it. Let's do it for a month and shut it off. That alone can
yeah,
create that cyclical roller coaster ride that you just talked about. Um, a lot of sales reps, a lot of individual contributors, they struggle with the prospecting piece and being intentional about it, meaning actually carving out time and doing it on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. Get so busy, doing demos or sending out proposals or customer meetings that, I mean, it's really easy to say, I'm not doing cold calls today because I got all this other stuff going on. Well, that too can create that roller coaster ride or lumpy activity, I think is what you called it a second ago, that I find I'm not really intentional and consistent about the top of funnel activity.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for my own personal business, it's 6 months. Like that's how long it takes to like realize that one customer that I called that said, yes, let's have the first conversation, and they make it all the way
Yep,
through. So
yep,
everything I do today is, well, now that we're halfway through the year, everything I do today is going to affect next year.
yep,
And
yep.
so I keeping my eye on the target. Yeah.
Well, kudos for you for knowing that. I mean, knowing the sales cycle time frame and other statistics like average deal size, it's critical to creating a revenue forecast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard thing to deal with because like as humans, our brains can really only kind of comprehend cause and result for a short period of time, and it's certainly not 6 months. So
Yeah,
it's like this
yeah,
constant game of having to remind ourselves that, or even if it's 3 months or even 3 weeks, I mean, the
yep,
immediacy matters. And obviously 3 weeks it's easier to see the impacts, but let's cut it down to 3 months, which sometimes we
yep,
do close deals in 3 months, but
yep,
sometimes it's six,
yep.
and sometimes it's a year. Having to continually remind your brain that is not programmed to understand cause and effect over that long of a period.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just a battle in and of itself.
Well, since you like stats, I'll throw
Love them. Yeah.
some more at you. When you think about, and what triggered me to say this was when you're talking about length of sales cycles. When you think about like complex technology sales to some large corporations, probably Fortune 500. I mean, honestly, Austin, some of those sales cycles can be 12 to 24 months.
Easily.
And it's not a single decision maker. It's typically a team, five, six, seven, eight individuals. And so we've been hammering that 8 touches needed for an individual contributor. When you're talking about that size company, that long of sales cycle, the number of touches needed, it's way over 200 because
Yeah.
you've got to touch each one of those decision influencers over 12 to 24 months.
Yeah.
So, back to your point of that's hard to comprehend
Yeah.
mentally, all those touches over 2 years. Wow.
I have a really funny anecdote for this, and then we're getting close to time, so we can wrap it up. But my wife worked as a deal desk analyst for a while, and she started at a company. And for those who don't know, a deal desk analyst basically helps get the contracts through
Mhm,
accurately in
mhm.
complex sales environments. And she started at a company. She was there for multiple years, and she left the company. She picked up a case that had already been opened to navigate. It stayed open the entire time she was there, and it was still open by the time she left. So this was years of, and this was a deal that we were just trying to get over the line, but redlining and contract negotiations and back and
Yep.
forth, and
Yep.
something
Yep.
changed. It becomes like this incredible amount of touches just to get
Yep.
one deal over the line. And meanwhile, other ones are closing in a quarter. So
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, especially with larger companies, complex solutions, big ticket items,
yeah,
um, you can lose a month or two in a blink of an eye to redlining an agreement.
yeah. Oh, I'm in the middle of that.
Yeah.
All right, before I go down all my line of anecdotes, this has been an awesome conversation. Love the
It's
stats-based
been
approach
fun.
to
It's
it.
been fun.
Any final parting thoughts, one big takeaway, or primary
Yeah,
thing somebody listening in should be like, I got to apply this to my business, or I should really start to understand this more.
yeah, when I've had this conversation with clients, Austin, I feel like sometimes there's this aha moment, and I keep talking about swimming upstream in the funnel. So maybe I'm a CEO and owner of VP of sales, and I've got a revenue goal in mind. So that's the bottom of the funnel, right? If I go through the exercise of swimming upstream and look at those conversion rates and ultimately get to the top of funnel activity, those numbers we were just talking about, the number of emails that need to go out, the number of LinkedIn connections that need to go out, phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. I might come to the conclusion that revenue goals, quota assignments are or are not realistic
Mm,
based on top of funnel strategies and top of funnel activities. Um, if you've got a well-oiled, dialed-in machine, you can feel confident about quota assignments, revenue assignments, and then truly hold your sales team accountable. But in some situations, we've done this, let's swim upstream and look at our top of funnel activity and come to the conclusion, wow, unless we do something different with top of funnel activity, we need to adjust revenue goals and quota goals because they're unobtainable or unrealistic right now.
yeah, yeah. You can't fix it in the middle, right?
Back to that numbers game, right? If the
Yeah,
right number isn't coming out on the bottom, it's a function of what's happening upstream.
yeah. That's a great thing to think about for sure. All right, Todd, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Austin. It's been great.